Now it's Thursday, week 3 of the preseason, the finale of the preseason at Houston. So the 49ers landed back at SFO at about 1:58 a.m. last night. And I'm so exact with that because I checked the flight tracker. And it was a little bit further, right? SFO, they got to get down to the South Bay. So people probably got home around 3. Practice is a little bit later tomorrow after the day off today, 1:45 p.m. And then they practice earlier on Tuesday before taking off to Houston on Wednesday for the game on Thursday, which should see a lot of the starting lineup, including Trey Lance. So we can reserve right now for discussing the backup quarterback position. Nate Sudfeld or Brock Purdy? Who's going to be QB2? Because according to Kyle Shanahan, that's still up in the air. So let's discuss some of the dynamics. Maybe we can even hint at who's the favorite here, and also include the whole Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo situation, because the 49ers will be making a lot of transactions and roster decisions over the course of the next couple of weeks. So I'll try to make sense of how that all fits into the grander plan. So anyway, here is the article. I put it in the chat section already. I'll put it there one more time. Make sure to check it out, and we'll talk about the 49ers quarterback situation behind Trey Lance. So in this piece, I thought that the most insightful nugget that we got from Kyle Shanahan today came after I asked him if Brock Purdy was the most polished rookie quarterback on the 49ers with whom he's worked. And Kyle seemed to really agree with that notion. The answer from him was that, well, Brock Purdy, he was a 4-year starter in the Big 12 at Iowa State. And people don't talk about that a lot, right? People just kind of assume that since this guy was the final pick of the 2022 NFL draft, and he is a little bit physically smaller than your prototypical quarterback that you would pick a little bit higher in the draft, I think a lot of people just assume that Brock Purdy might not be that experienced, but it's just the opposite. Started for 4 years at Iowa State. And if you watch the preseason so far, and I could extend this to training camp, if you watch training camp so far, the guy is in full control of clock management. He's got poise. The playbook seems like it's second nature to him. I mean, he's out there, and despite being, compared to somebody like Trey Lance, definitely physically limited, right? He's not going to move as quickly. He doesn't have as strong of an arm as Trey Lance. But despite all of that, Brock Purdy has been an impressive command of what the 49ers have been running offensively, to the point where I think that the most impressive work that Purdy's put on tape so far has been in the pair of 2-minute drills that he's run. 2-minute drill at the end of the Packers game, week 1 of the preseason, end of the first half of the Packers game. 2-minute drill at the end of the first half of the Vikings game on Saturday night. Both times, he's managing the clock just so well. The big throw yesterday against the Vikings went to Malik Turner. Pass protection wasn't perfect. I just think that Purdy has a good feel of what's going on. And this is really matching what the 49ers brass said after the draft. When they picked this guy, they said, we just watched the tape and he just knew how to play the position. He sensed the rush. He knew how to manage the huddle. The accuracy was good enough. It's been good enough for the 49ers so far. And we thought that this would translate into a good developmental quarterback that could, instantly plug in and be somebody that could be valuable in one of the backup spots. Now, let's remember that when we talk about the QB2 position for the 49ers, they put their money where their mouth is as far as Nate Sudfeld goes. And when they re-signed him back in March, they gave him $2 million fully guaranteed for this 2022 season. And that means that Nate Sudfeld is the odds-on favorite to be the 49ers backup quarterback. And let's be honest, through training camp and through 2 games, preseason games, Nate Sudfeld has not done anything to lower his probability of being QB number 2. If anything, the only reason that this is a discussion that we're having right now is because Brock Purdy has played so well. Brock Purdy has carried that college experience over into training camp in the preseason. And so it's at least, okay, why don't we question this right now? But Nate Sudfeld has been really, really accurate through training camp, 74% accuracy through training camp. And that's extended into these 2 preseason games. He threw only 3 or 4 incompletions yesterday. There were only a couple incompletions in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. So it's still Nate Sudfeld odds on QB2. But Brock Purdy, what he's really done here is created a situation where the 49ers are going to have to probably decide if they carry 3 quarterbacks or not on the 53-man roster, because they, for sure, I would be absolutely shocked. So I'll say this for certain. They're going to want to keep all 3 of these guys, Trey Lance, Nate Sudfeld, and Brock Purdy, in the building. Right. But usually the way that the 49ers keep all 3 quarterbacks in the building is by carrying 2 on the 53-man roster and then waiving the 3rd and re-signing him as part of the practice squad. The problem is that when you waive somebody, the other 31 teams have a chance to claim him. Brock Purdy has been good enough so far to where I think it's becoming a little bit of a question in the 49ers' heads. They're saying, hey, if we waive Brock Purdy, is it a non-zero chance that he's going to pass through waivers without anybody claiming him? And if he goes out there and plays well again on Thursday at Houston in the second half, and he shows the kind of moxie that we've seen throughout the first 2 preseason games and throughout practice at training camp, well, the chances that somebody takes a stab at Brock Purdy go up, and the 49ers obviously wouldn't want that. So to avoid that risk, you carry him on the 53-man roster, but that obviously creates another issue. That means that you close off a roster spot for somebody else, right? And this is a competitive situation. 49ers have 85 men on the roster right now. They're going to have to cut down to 80 tomorrow or on Tuesday. So it goes from 90 to 85 last week, 85 to 80 on Tuesday of this week. And then the following Tuesday, August 30th, from 80 to 53. That's the big one. And, with so many guys fighting for fringe roster spots on this deep and talented roster, the more QBs you take, the more you eat into the quality of the rest of the roster, which, if we want to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, well, August 30th is the 53-man cut down date. Sure, the 49ers can carry him then and still not owe him the money until September 10th. But even if they do that, right, if they carry Garoppolo on August 30th, that eats into another roster spot. That starts hurting the quality of the roster if Jimmy's not going to play for you this season. So that's what the 49ers have to consider with both Garoppolo, for different reasons than Purdy, obviously. With Brock Purdy, they have to consider it because of a waiver situation and the practice squad. But I think if Shanahan is even considering, and it seems to me that he is, if he's even considering carrying 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, that means that he doesn't want to have Garoppolo weighing down that spot on the 53 at the start of the year. Now, the reason they would theoretically carry Garoppolo on the 53 is because they don't owe him any money and they want to extend the period of 2 things. A, Seahawks can't pick him up until September 10th at the soonest, and you play the Seahawks week 2, so you don't want Garoppolo preparing with the Seahawks, sharing state secrets about what defense to run against Trey Lance. That's a 2-faceted thing. And B, with the whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation, you give this as, quarterbacks have already gotten hurt right during training camp, but you give as much of a possibility, like runway wise, for a potential trade offer to come in. The issue that we've talked about throughout that the 49ers face now, ever since Jimmy came back from the shoulder injury, since he was fully cleared, they, in a way, have telegraphed their plans. Lynch and Shanahan have just been honest about it. They've said that this is Trey's team, right? And if other teams expect the 49ers to release Jimmy Garoppolo, well, then they don't want to give up draft capital for him right now. So that lends itself to the slightly crazier theory of the 49ers keeping Jimmy past September 10th and actually owing him the money, the $24.2 million, and hoping that an injury happens sooner or that a quarterback elsewhere sucks sooner so that they, actually can get something back in a trade, because they would actually be holding on to Garoppolo's rights through this 2022 season. But again, that would force them to A, carry the roster spot, and then B, they'd be held hostage to that $24.2 million. So it isn't the most appealing option, right? You would get that money back if, say, Garoppolo leaves in a trade by week 2. You'd get the prorated portion back, but you'd still be risking a whole lot. And I just don't think that's how the 49ers want to operate. They entered this offseason with plan 1 being start Lance, trade Garoppolo. Obviously, the whole shoulder situation made the trade Garoppolo a whole lot trickier, but we'll see where their priorities really lie with the cap savings. And I think that the cap savings and that roster spot are really, really important to the 49ers. And that's how it ties into the whole Brock Purdy situation, because Purdy, third quarterback, would take up an extra roster spot. Will the 49ers be able to sneak him onto the practice squad, given how well he's played? without using that roster spot by waiving him on cutdown day? And that's a question I think that everybody wants to know the answer to, and we don't know the answer to right now. All right, so check out the article. I talk about Purdy, Sudfeld, QB2. Let's move on to other 49ers news. This is all in the piece. Mike McGlinchey is going to be out for at least another week, and this might be time to start raising some concern flags for the 49ers, because based on the way that Kyle Shanahan talked today, he wasn't, all too confident that McGlinchey is going to be back after that week. He said, we're going to test him again. Remember, McGlinchey was out all of the offseason, really, rehabbing from the quad tear from last year. Surgically repaired quad tear, was back in time for training camp, but knee irritation hit Mike McGlinchey after the game last week, after the Packers game. He had a PRP, platelet-rich plasma treatment in the knee, which, is something that I think verified that this was unrelated to the quad, which Shanahan has actually said as well. But the knee obviously is still bothering him, because Shanahan said that he wasn't healthy enough to return to the lineup this week. So Colton McKivitz is now the 49ers starter at right tackle. He, for all intents and purposes, has won that swing tackle job, and he's going to be playing there on Thursday when the 49ers play most of their starters against the Texans. But as far as McGlinchey goes, you got to cross your fingers and hold your breath if you're the 49ers. Because, with McKivitz, we saw what he brought the 49ers at left tackle last year. He spot started for them in place of Trent Williams in Week 18 against the Rams. Yes, the 49ers won, but McKivitz also gave up 5 pressures in that game. It's not like he was a world beater in that game. Will right tackle offer a little less pressure? Maybe, but the best edge rushers line up either on both sides, or they come over right tackle now in the NFL. So McKivitz is going to have to be a lot better than he was last year in Week 18, regardless of what side he's on. And if he's at right tackle, the 49ers are going to need a big step up from what they saw last year, because it's not going to just be a one-game spot start if Mike McGlinchey's out for an extended period of time. So right now, it's hold your breath time for the 49ers at right tackle. That's the only way I could really put it, because I think McKivitz has had a decent camp. He's been a whole lot better than Justin School, Jordan Mills, Jalen Moore, those guys. So he has taken strides this year. But McGlinchey, you have first-round picks in those tackle positions for a reason. Trent Williams, obviously, former first-round pick. Mike McGlinchey, former first-round pick. And it's because those guys have that higher upside that could block these ultra-freakish athletic edge rushers. And Colton McKivitz, so far in his 49ers career, he still has a lot to prove. He still hasn't really shown that he could be a down-in, down-out starting tackle. So there's a reason he's a backup, and there's a reason why the 49ers are holding their breath right now with this McGlinchey knee irritation. Speaking of the offensive line, I watched the Spencer Burford, Aaron Banks tape this morning, and I came away, feeling that they're on the right track, especially Burford. Burford gave up 5 pressures and 17 snaps in Week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. He only gave up a pressure over 23 pass blocking snaps, and it came on one of his earliest snaps in this game, and it wasn't even a full beat. Sudfeld was the QB, and the tackle kind of ripped by Spencer Burford on the right side, but I say it wasn't a full defeat because he was still impeding the pass rusher well into the rep. And Nate Sudfeld, who's not mobile at all, right, had the opportunity because Burford held on just enough to kind of roll out, and then he threw that, naked rollout pass, really nice pass to Tyler Kroft on the sideline. So I thought Burford was a whole lot better in pass protection, didn't look like a deer in the headlights anymore than he was in Week 1. And Aaron Banks gave up 2 pressures, but, they both were clumped together. It was back-to-back downs. It was a second down. It was a third down earlier in the game. Purdy was the quarterback. It was, where Purdy got sacked, then Jordan Mills gave up the sack. Banks got pushed back by the tackle on that sack. So he was kind of part of it, and that wasn't good. And then the very next down, they ran a stunt. Minnesota did, and they brought the defensive end around from the end up against Banks. He wasn't ready for the stunt, and the end just blasted right by him, created a pressure, 3 and out for the 49ers. But what I will say is that the very next possession, the 49ers faced the third down. It was the very next third down. Minnesota decided to run that same stunt against Aaron Banks, and that time he picked it up, and he didn't give up any more pressures throughout the rest of his outing. So, Shanahan, I asked him about it today, and Shanahan said, yeah, I mean, there was good, there was bad. Anytime you have guys that are that experienced, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. But he pointed out what I noticed on the film this morning, and he said it was good that they got in there into the second quarter and started started repairing some of the mistakes that they made in the first. And that's exactly what I saw. I mean, Banks picked up the second stunt, didn't pick up the first one, and Burford didn't give up a pressure after that one where Sudfeld made a nice pass to Croft. So that's all that you can ask for from your starting young offensive lineman, right? Get better each time. Don't repeat the same mistakes. They didn't repeat the mistakes in the game last night, in last night's game on the road, of course, and they're going to be going back on the road against the not the Denver Broncos. The Broncos is week 3 against the Houston Texans on Thursday. And in this Thursday game, you're going to see Burford and Banks probably play a full half alongside the rest of the 49ers offensive line. And that's going to be key to me as well, because yesterday the 49ers as a whole gave up a whole lot of pressure and people freaked out a little bit, right? But it didn't matter as long as Banks and Burford looked okay, which I thought that they did. But there was a lot of pressure that came against Keaton Sutherland, their third string center, Jordan Mills, backup tackle, Justin School, backup tackle yesterday, right? And those guys aren't going to be starters unless the 49ers have an emergency this year. But we differentiate the pressure. And I noticed that Sutherland, who gave up, I think, 3 pressures. I mean, he was bad at center yesterday. There's a reason he's the third string center, and the 49ers can knock on wood that they don't reach that third string center position. But Sutherland on one of those plays, it looked like Burford was unoccupied. It looked like Burford probably could have helped him out as Sutherland was getting beat to his right, in between the center and the right guard spot. And Burford didn't help him out. Now, I don't know if that's a miscommunication that's Burford's fault, or if Sutherland needed to better direct Burford to the line of scrimmage. But to me, my main takeaway was that the 49ers had their third string center in. And you would hope with a first string center, probably going to be Jake Brendel, right? With Alex Mack, for sure, this would have been fixed last year. But with a first string center like Brendel, you would hope that that miscommunication that was there is rectified and that Burford is helping the center and Sutherland doesn't give up that pressure. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Burford and Banks work with Trent Williams at left tackle, work with Jake Brendel at center, and they're going to have to work with Colton McKivitz at right tackle. It won't be McGlinchey, but working with more of the starting 5 in this game because the offensive line has to block in unison. It's not always going to be one-on-one kind of stuff. But good news for the 49ers is that most of the pressure did come against the backups who won't be starters for them this season. I thought Banks and Burford showed some promising things upon the rewatch of the tape. All right, let's talk about the Trey Sermon, Jordan Mason situation, because this is raging like wildfire on social media. Again, I have it up in the article that is right on the screen for you right here. So we'll put this back in the chat section. Check it out. Before we talk about this, you could subscribe to The Athletic, right? That's $1 a month. That's the piece, 1,600 words of analysis from yesterday's 49ers game. And like and subscribe to this video and this channel respectively. But I want to talk about the running back situation. Trey Sermon, Jordan Mason. Look at this little graphic that I made courtesy some PFF stats. Maybe make this a little bit bigger so you guys can check it out. This is the 49ers running back performance this preseason. Now, remember that Elijah Mitchell is currently out, right? So with Mitchell out with the hamstring strain, that's the 49ers top back. You have these other 4 just going at it here in practice. Jeff Wilson, I don't have him on here either because we didn't see him yesterday. But these 4 running backs, Hasty, Mason, Davis Price, and Trey Sermon, have a handful of carries each. Here are their yards. But the yards per carry after contact is something that we can evaluate through these preseason games. Because in preseason, unlike in training camp, the tackling is live to the ground. So you actually see how a guy performs after the contact. Can he break tackles? Ty Davis Price obviously did a good job for the 49ers yesterday. And you look at this and you see that Jermichael Hasty, Jordan Mason, and Davis Price have all gained a considerable amount after contact. And Trey Sermon, who a lot of people on social media right now are upset with, has not indeed gained a lot after contact. 4.9 for Hasty, 4.1 for Mason, 3.2 for Davis Price. 1.6 for Trey Sermon. So what can we make of this? What did Kyle Shanahan say about all of this? Who are the 49ers going to carry on the 53-man roster? Well, first, we have to put things in context. I noticed that on Twitter, a lot of people were quoting Shanahan today about Trey Sermon because they wanted the quote to sound like it was negative toward Trey Sermon, whereas Kyle Shanahan's quote to me was just completely neutral toward Trey Sermon. The way that Kyle has played this off is Trey got hurt, ankle injury, Trey Sermon, not Trey Lance, ankle injury during the practices against Minnesota. He hobbled off the field, and Kyle, both last night after the game and today on his conference call, said that Trey Sermon, it was good that he played just to take a few snaps from the rest of the 49ers backs to keep everybody fresh. Kyle almost was making it sound like he didn't expect anything from Trey Sermon playing on this ankle injury, and he repeated that again today. He also, tacked on a line that said that he made the most out of his opportunities, which was funny to me because he had, 8 yards on 5 carries, maybe 5 yards and 8. Yeah, I think it was 8 yards and 5 carries. Obviously, there weren't a lot of opportunities there. And, I mentioned yesterday, I thought there was a little bit of hesitation on one of the runs to the outside. And then obviously he dropped that pass over the middle that could have moved the chains for the 49ers. So what does Kyle mean by he made the most of his opportunities when clearly there with that drop, there wasn't a maximization of opportunities? And I think that Kyle is partly protecting his player, but partly saying that there actually wasn't that much running room for Trey Sermon. And remember, he's running against better defenders because he started for the 49ers the past 2 games versus Jordan Mason got to work against a lot of the third stringers. And Shanahan mentioned this with Purdy and Sudfeld. He wanted to rotate them because he knew that if he only played Purdy in the second half, he would only play against third stringers and not just the second stringers. And that gets a whole lot easier if it's the third stringer. So Shanahan is not looking at this running back situation the way Twitter is, right? He's not seeing a great run of Jordan Mason bowling over third stringers late in the fourth quarter and weighing that as heavily as something that happens at the very start of the game, which is why I think he's not being as harsh on Trey Sermon, that plus the ankle injury. Now, what will the 49ers do? I'm not sure because I feel there's a logjam here. Troy Dye, the former Oregon linebacker, he was trying to blitz on that 2-minute drill where Purdy threw the pass to Malik Turner right over the middle. Really nice pass. And on that play, Jermichael Hasty had the nicest blitz pickup that I've seen a 49ers execute in quite some time. And it was really good. I mean, Troy Dye weighs 225 pounds. Jermichael Hasty's 205. But as Tim Ryan says, he's a ball of muscle. And the book on Hasty in the past had been suspect pass protector. Not on this play. He just stonewalled Troy Dye. And as you saw in the chart I put up a little bit earlier, Hasty's been picking up yards after contact. That big ball of muscle is running hard. But the fact that Hasty can pass protect, the fact that he's running hard through contact, and the fact that he's a little bit shiftier at a lighter weight than the rest of the 49ers running backs makes me think they're going to want to put him on this 53-man roster. But is there room? Because you've got the potential of Jordan Mason, and that's looked really good in these games too. Then obviously you have the third-round pick, Trey Sermon, who Shanahan really, to me, seems like he's suggesting, if not insisting, last week he insisted that he's been a lot better than the room to run has shown over the first 2 preseason games. Somebody's going to be the odd man out unless there's an injury situation. And right, there's already an injury situation with Elijah Mitchell, but Mitchell should be back from the hamstring in time for week 1. The 49ers in an ideal world would like as much depth as possible on the roster at running back, but it's not going to be possible to keep all these guys, which is why there's some angst about Sermon, about Jordan Mason, about Jermichael Hasty. And I'll tell you what, I was most impressed yesterday with Jordan Mason and Jermichael Hasty, man. Jermichael Hasty with that blitz pickup, that's going to mean something. That's not going to go unnoticed in the 49ers building. Of course, Ty Davis-Price had some manly runs yesterday. Baldy's breakdowns on Ty Davis-Price were nice. He didn't hit that hole on the first 4th down, but he learned from his lessons a little bit later on. So we will be watching that running back room with great interest over the course of this next week. Now, one thing, the 49ers are going to dress rehearsal this game on Thursday, right? Starting offensive line, you're going to see the full works. I think that in fairness to all the running backs, to Sermon, to Jordan Mason, to Jermichael Hasty, to Jeff Wilson, if we see him in this game, to Ty Davis-Price, I think you got to give them all some run behind the first team offensive line. I want to see what Sermon looks like behind Trent Williams before I decide that he's not worth keeping on this team, right? And the same for everybody. I want to see how they operate with the first team offensive line, or at least as much of it that's intact health-wise, since we won't see McGlinchey before we pass off any final judgments. Because I know everybody online likes to see a couple carries. They get frustrated during a preseason game and they want to make a knee-jerk reaction. But the bottom line is the preseason games are going to have a very eclectic mix of talent on the field. And you're going to be playing against better guys, worse guys. I mean, you have to normalize it, right? And that's what the dress rehearsal is about. First half of this game on Thursday, we'll see the starters. And I think that the 49ers should rotate their running backs through. Man, I talked so much. That was 25 minutes of straight 49ers talking. So why don't you like this video and subscribe to the channel? I have a drop of water left here. I mean, it's better than nothing, but I probably should go get a little bit more. I'm going to take a peek at the comment section, see what you guys have to say here. Sorry, there's a ton of comments, so I'm going to kind of scroll through a few of them. And here, Clarence Molina. Running back room should eventually be Mitchell, Jeff Wilson Jr., Ty Davis-Price, Jordan Mason, and Hasty. You think that Sherman would clear waivers and make the practice squad? It depends. I don't know if he'd clear waivers or not. He doesn't have much impressive NFL film on tape, that's for sure, because of last season. He still does have that higher draft pedigree, though. He was projected to go around there in the draft last year, so he might have some believers elsewhere in the league. So I wouldn't be so sure that he would clear waivers. I would just let Kyle Shanahan fulfill the entirety of this evaluation. It's August 21st. We still have 9 days, and we still have the dress rehearsal game. And if anything, the carries during the dress rehearsal game will mean way more than the carries in weeks 1 and 2. You got to see how these guys operate behind the first team offensive line. Thanks for the question, though. Let me go through some more over here. Yeah, let's get them subs. Let's get up to 19K. Let's start building this. Went shorter with the beard today. It just got so hot out here. I'm up in the mountains. So I decided, we'll just let the beard kind of grow out maybe through the season. But we're going to go back to the shadow look for today. In case you guys are wondering, I just noticed, I just looked at the screen. I saw myself, whoa, where'd the beard go? Got a lot shorter, but no, just a little bit of shortening here for the time being. Scroll up, see if there's any questions here. Welcome, everybody that's new. I know that we probably got a few new viewers here through the Pat McAfee appearance the other day. That was fun. I should be back on there to talk some 49ers as this season moves forward. It's crazy. It's August 21st, and the 49ers are about to play their final preseason game, yet we're still a good 3 weeks away from the first regular season game. It's too long, man. Too long. The season needs to start sooner. They need to start camp a little bit later, shorten the preseason, because it's going to be a weird couple weeks just trying to fill it up as we're waiting. Should the 49ers trade for right tackle? I don't know. Who should they trade for? What do they have to trade? I don't know what McGlinchey's health status is right now. Shanahan doesn't seem to know. So they'll reevaluate next week. Maybe do something before the deadline if it's not looking good. But last week they thought he could be back in a week. Then he got the PRP, and now it's going to be another week. So, I mean, it's an important position, that's for sure, but I don't know what the exact situation is. There isn't any evidence right now the 49ers need a better starting center. Jake Brendel did fine in week 1. Didn't allow a single pressure in week 1. I mean, yesterday was Keaton Sutherland. That is a center that they signed. You said they should have signed a center. Well, they did sign one. You saw him play yesterday. It was Keaton Sutherland. He's their third string center. So I don't think that center is necessarily proven to be an issue at this point. Again, Brendel, clean sheet week 1 against the Packers. Yeah. Convince Joe Staley to come back. I don't think that's going to happen. Staley is a lot lighter than he was during his playing days. Real estate investor. I think Jeff Wilson and Trey Sermon on the bubble likely won't be cut and brought back, or both. Wilson will get picked up for sure if we cut him, though. It's really hard to know who will get picked up and who won't. Wilson is a more established veteran, but he is coming off a worse season because it was the meniscus tear. It's going to be a crapshoot. And hey, something can still happen between now and then. Usually injuries resolve this. So I'm still waiting. And the reps of the first team O-line should help resolve this as well. I'm looking here. Will Snead make the team? I don't think that Willie Snead is going to make the team. No. The final receiver that's going to make the team, and I talk about this in the article, is going to be Malik Turner. He was the up man on the punt yesterday where he forced a fumble. That was impressive, right? Just rips that ball out. Samuel Womack falls on it. Good play for the 49ers. And that's what Malik Turner's done his whole career. He's done it for the Seahawks in the past, where Brian Schneider, who's now the 49ers special teams coordinator, was the special teams coordinator. Shanahan yesterday says that Malik's been everything that the 49ers have wanted. Expect him to make that sixth wide receiver spot. He also made a couple catches yesterday, including that big one from Purdy. Only helps his chances. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. Nice little 30-minute show. Sub to The Athletic. Link is in the comment section for the article. That's the one I wrote today. Like this video and sub to the channel. Do it right now. Don't pretend that you're doing it. Actually do it right now. I'm on Twitter at Lombardi himself and on Instagram at Lombardi himself. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a great Sunday evening, and it's going to be a fun week. The preseason finale is coming up at Houston on Thursday. Talk to you all soon from the practice field tomorrow at the 49ers facility.